The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Transform your home during Blinds.com's Black Friday Super Sale. Get up to 50% off site-wide, plus huge doorbuster deals on popular styles. Go DIY and do it all 100% online, or choose white glove service with expert design help and professional installation. Both backed by Blinds.com's 100% satisfaction guarantee. Blinds.com's Black Friday Super Sale is here. Save up to 50% site-wide and get a free professional measure. Limited time offer, rules and restrictions apply. See Blinds.com for details.
I think that as women, we are always told to be less, eat less, take up less space. And that is not necessarily what's going to help you nourish your body, feel better, have more energy, sleep better. I almost always tell my clients to eat more than what they're eating because they're not eating enough, or they're not eating enough to support their workouts or their physical activity or even just their day-to-day.
I'm Jessica Valant. I'm a physical therapist, women's health expert, and Pilates teacher, and my goal is to help all women feel strong, safe, and secure in their bodies. In this podcast, I'll share expert advice, facts, amazing guests, stories, compassion, and hope to help you meet your body in all seasons of life. We have a great episode today for you with Marita Radloff. So I first met Marita years ago. I was actually on her podcast, and I knew when it was time to bring important and relatable and accessible nutrition content to you. Marita was top of mind. So this is a great conversation where we talk really about our overall relationship with food, and then also really actionable tips and ways to kind of go through and strategize around all the information that we have. So for example, how much protein do you actually need in a day? We cover it all. So let me tell you about Marita. Marita Radloff is a registered dietitian nutritionist with over 10 years of experience working with athletes of all levels. She's also a military spouse, currently living in Omaha with her husband and her 3 boys. Marita doesn't believe in restrictive diets, but instead helps clients learn to eat nourishing foods that they actually enjoy, supporting their life and training. When not working, Marita writes for nutrition outlets and enjoys baking and working out. And Marita is a part of our Unlimited community and app as well, where she supports our members from a nutritional standpoint. I truly am so excited for this conversation because I know it will be very empowering for all of our listeners who are wondering how to really support your body through food and nutrition. So thanks so much for being here, and I'm excited to bring you my conversation with Marita Radloff. So you all heard my introduction. I am so excited for this conversation today. Marita, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I've never been on like a podcast recording before. I'm always the host, so I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And you guys, we were just talking, Marita was out of town and got in at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And so she is in it. Like, we are so glad to have you right now. So like I said, I kind of told everybody everything in the introduction, but tell us more, like dive into whatever you want us to know about your story, where you are in the world, everything.
Yes. Well, I am in the Midwest. We're in Omaha. My husband is active duty, so we've been all over, and I feel like that has actually kind of helped my being a dietitian because I've had different cultural aspects thrown in with the South, and I used to live in the Pacific Northwest, and now we're in the Midwest where it's casserole town. So it's always fun to see different food, cultural things. So that's fun. But yeah, I've been a dietitian for 10 years, and this was actually my second career. I went back to school after graduating with my first bachelor's, and it took me a while to get through because there's so many different requirements for that. But I love being a dietitian. I love helping people explore their relationship with food and improving it and helping them fuel whatever their sport is or whatever their athletic endeavors are. And so it's been a really fun journey.
And I don't think I knew that it was kind of a second career, second path for you. What made you want to commit? Because I always think of that. I think sometimes, oh my gosh, would I go back to school now? Like, what would make me love it so much that I would actually go back to school? So I love those stories. What was it about nutrition, dietitian that made you want to commit to that?
It's so funny because I grew up with a mom in the 90s who was like on the cabbage soup diet or trying out something else new. And so I always grew up reading like women's health and self magazines, and those nutrition articles, the food articles were always my favorite. But I am horrible at chemistry. Like in high school, I barely passed chemistry. And so I thought you have to take 2 chemistry courses in order to become a dietitian. And I thought, oh no, I'm never going to be able to do that, to pass that, even though I was very good at biology and all the other sciences. And so I just did not allow myself to even consider that. And I actually worked for a nephrologist in college. I was their babysitter for their 3 kids, their nanny. And she was constantly like, I work with so many dietitians. You would be really good at this. Like, you're so into this. But I wasn't until after I graduated and it was the recession and the BP oil spill, and we had just moved to Pensacola, Florida for my husband's flight training, and it was like, what am I doing with my life? So I just decided to start taking one course at a time, and chemistry was a bear, but I got through it somehow. And so I think that's maybe a good testament to just trying to believe in yourself a little bit, because I definitely thought to myself, oh, I'm never going to be able to get above a C, and dietetic internships are more competitive statistically than getting into medical school. So I thought, oh my gosh, if I don't do well in this, what's the point of this? I'm going to have a useless degree. So it was really, really tough. Like, there were many tears and so much studying very, very late into the night, but I'm glad that I thought that I could try and attempt that.
That is amazing. That's such a great story. And yeah, such a good lesson for, I mean, all of us, like on what you can do if you are interested, if you follow your curiosity. I love that. We could probably do a whole episode just about that. But when it comes to nutrition, so tell us, I think we think so much just about food, right? Especially like you said, growing up in that, if you had a mom who was really into dieting, that whole culture in the 80s and in the 90s, like it's very much about food only, calories in, calories out. But tell us kind of the entire thought process around like nutrition as a whole. When we truly think about giving our bodies nutrition, kind of talk through, is it only food? Does it have to do with nervous system, stress? Like, how do you look at that entire system?
Right. I think we think food, yeah, food is just food, and it's food in, food out, calories in, calories out. But I mean, nutrition is really such a multifaceted system. It has to do with, how you eat, when you eat, why you eat, other lifestyle factors, like you said, sleep, stress, how much physical activity you're getting. What is your job like? Are you only having 10 minutes to scarf something down? I think too, starting with like what we eat, like the quality and the quantity. If you're someone who only has like 3 big meals a day and never really snacks, and you constantly feel so full from those meals, and then you feel just tired all day long, and then you eat a ton of food at night, that's going to affect how you feel throughout the day and influence your overall relationship with food. And then going to how we eat. Are you eating mindfully? Are you just kind of eating and you're not really there and just kind of shoveling something in really quickly because that's all the time you have? And I feel like a lot with my clients is focusing on when we eat. A lot of people don't think about their meal patterns and just think about, it's 12 o'clock, I guess I need to eat lunch. But it's like, when was the last time you ate? Did you have breakfast? Was it 6 hours ago? A lot of people, especially clients and athletes that I work with, are not eating frequently enough. And that really influences how you feel during the day. If you're going really long periods of time between eating, 6 hours, that blood sugar is going to be so low, and you're just going to feel terrible. You're going to like be slogging through the day. Your fatigue is going to be right front and center. And then why we eat. Are you an emotional eater? Is it just physiological hunger? Like we said, going back to that dieting culture in the 90s, are you ignoring your hunger cues? Because you shouldn't ignore a hunger cue. It's the same as like if you have to go pee. Would you say, "Oh no, I don't have to pee right now. I'll just wait."
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's a physiological cue. And then how we live. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough movement? Are you taking any different supplements that are maybe or medications that are affecting your hunger and then your stress levels? And also your culture. We have to admit that we're in a melting pot and we have different cultural aspects of our food. Different cultures eat completely different things than others. And it also depends on where you live. If you live in a food desert, you're definitely going to have a different relationship with food than if you live in a big metropolis and you have a lot of access to different foods and produce. So it's definitely a huge multifaceted system, and it's not just calories in and calories out.
I love framing it that way and like bringing that up to people. And I know personally, and I just had this happened this morning because yes, I was like, okay, we're meeting. I'm going to eat beforehand. I need to have some food. And sometimes with my history of endometriosis and abdominal surgeries, there's a huge digestive component. I know what it feels like to not be able to eat and to get sick when I eat and to be worried about what I eat. And that really plays in sometimes to my relationship with food. I love food, but I know I get nervous about, okay, I don't want to eat out. I don't know what I'm eating. I don't know how it's going to affect me. I know what it feels like when I get sick from food.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's truly making myself do it. I mean, this morning I can't say it tasted great. I knew I would feel better afterwards, but there is sometimes a component of I'm doing this just to nourish myself. I'm not even doing it because I enjoy it, but I know I'm going to need it.
Exactly. I feel that way too. Like sometimes in the afternoon, if I know I need a snack or I'm going to feel nauseous before dinner, like, wow, I should have had something to eat. Even if it's not something I really want, or I'm on the go with my kids, or I'm just grab a bar really quickly and I'm like, I don't really want this, but I know I need to eat it. There's definitely moments of that. And I think as women, especially, we have this view that we should only be eating 1,200 calories a day. And that is what a 3-year-old toddler needs. There's always that little voice in the back of my head, especially coming from a mom who dieted literally her whole life. I that's just part of my culture. That's just part of who I am and my relationship with food. And that's something that's just probably always going to be there. Unfortunately, it's always like, ooh, should I make this choice? And maybe that's maybe being a little too honest as a dietitian, but I do think that helps with me counseling other people because so many people grow up that way also, or have that little voice in the back of their head like, ooh, should I be eating this? Or maybe I should just skip this and not have that. So yes, there's so many different nuances to that.
And I would love to actually dive into more about the hunger cue piece because I think that's so important. And because I do a lot with embodiment and we talk about that, about how, yeah, we have been trained to not listen to that cue or even more so to think it's bad. Like it is wrong. It's not 12 o'clock yet, or I'm not out of my intermittent fasting window yet. And so that cue must be wrong. Or how many times have we heard, oh, it's just thirst. You're actually just thirsty, which honestly I do to my kids sometimes. They just had a huge meal and they're telling me they're still hungry. I'm like, okay, let's just take a moment, take just a minute. Are you hungry? And sometimes I'll say, okay, you can have as many grapes as you want. Oh, never mind. And I'm like, oh, you're actually not hungry. That was, you actually just want a dessert. So tell us about hunger cues. I mean, how do we listen? Should we start to reframe that every hunger cue is actually telling us we're hungry? I would love to know more around that.
Well, I think you're right. I think a lot of people sometimes it is you're just thirsty. But we're definitely a dehydrated nation, so that is something to consider also. Sometimes if I feel, especially with clients, if they're like, "Oh, I just ate and I was so hungry." It's like, "Well, when was the last time you had any water before then?" It's usually like, did I have water today at all? So yes, that is a consideration. So it's always good to check in with yourself. I think that is the main thing for hunger cues. Check in with yourself and be like, okay, have I had some water in the last hour, the last 4 hours, and then have some water and see how you feel. But I would never ignore a hunger cue. I feel like with clients especially, I always say to go on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being like the absolute hungriest you could ever be, you're absolutely starving, you haven't eaten all day. to 10, like Thanksgiving full. I could not get another morsel into my mouth. I am so, so full. If you're somewhere in like the 4, 5-ish range, you should probably eat. If that feels like not tangible for you, if you're like, I don't, that 1 to 10 doesn't feel good for me, I always ask people if they could eat a whole apple, if you're hungry enough to eat an apple, because you think apple is like juicy and it's filling and it's crunchy, like it takes a lot to eat it. So that's, most of everybody has had an apple. So that is something that I ask them, like, if you could eat a whole apple, what does that mean that you're actually hungry? And that's usually yes. Usually with people, with clients, I always start with hunger cues instead of trying to count calories or anything like that. It's always like, if you can tap in at least for one meal, maybe it's breakfast, maybe it's dinner, whatever your most relaxed meal is, and see how you feel before and how you feel after. Like, okay, really quickly before I start eating, where am I on that 1 to 10 scale? And then after, it's like, okay, if I'm somewhere at like a 7-ish, that's usually the best. I'm pretty full and I'm going to feel fuller in 20-ish minutes when it's time for my stomach to catch up with my brain and say, hey, we're full, we're good. A 7 is a really good place to land after a meal. But if you are just kind of going through the day constantly hungry, it's either you're not eating enough fulfilling and nourishing and satisfying things during those meals. Like maybe you're just having a salad and you're not adding any carbs or fat to that lunch, or maybe you are really cutting back on those calories and you're not getting enough calories overall, or maybe you are just not really checking in with yourself and not feeling like you are actually eating and being mindful in that regard. I feel like that is a really good way to start with checking in on those hunger cues, but I would never ignore a hunger cue. It is a physiological cue. So it's something that is so important to start to heal that relationship with food, and just checking in with yourself is so important throughout the day.
That is so good to hear. And I think you can, like, what helped me a lot with, yeah, learning how to eat with all of my digestive issues was exactly that. Like, okay, this is a hunger cue. I need to listen to it. But then I have choices within that on what I choose
Yes.
and kind of how big this meal is going to be. That's where it's probably different for all of us, I would say. I
Mm-hmm.
think some people really work well with counting specific macros and counting calories, and some people might work well with a bigger fasting window overnight. And some people, we all are a little bit different. I mean, I'm allergic to garlic. I'm never going to eat that ever. Other people will. So I have that power of choice within what I eat, but I really shouldn't be ignoring the fact that I need to eat.
Yeah, and I think what you touched on there too, I think like counting macros versus like intuitive eating, sometimes that can be a really good tool for people to show them like, whoa, I'm really low on protein, or whoa, I'm an endurance runner and I'm not getting enough carbs to support my training, something like that. And other times that can be a really toxic tool, and it can show them that they are completely ignoring their hunger cues in order to try and fit into their caloric intake and or macros, and that's not healthy either. I think it's good to know yourself really well in order to explore that relationship with food and to heal that relationship with food if that applies to you. But it's always a good tool to just see like, I'm really off the mark here, or I'm actually doing okay. This is what's supporting me and feeling good at the moment.
And that is kind of a perfect segue. Can you kind of just give us an overview? Because I'm sure there are some people listening who say, oh my gosh, I've heard this term macros. What in the world does that even mean? So, talk us through what that means. And then also, I would love, because I've heard you talk about this in the past, I think it's so helpful, how to build a plate. Like, what kind of
Yeah.
general, can you talk about that?
Yes. Okay. So macros are your three main macronutrients. So it's protein, fat, and carbs. And there should always be a distribution of that on your plate, because I feel like a lot of people get stuck on, oh, I need to cut back on carbs and have a ton of protein, or, oh, let's do low fat because that has more calories, because fat has 9 calories per gram, whereas carbs and protein have 4. So it's a really good approach to just building your plate, which is what I like to do with my clients instead of necessarily counting macros, unless that's like a really big goal of theirs and they have like weightlifting goals, or maybe they're endurance runners and they're not getting enough carbs. But yes, I use what's called performance plates. It's just a really tangible way to hit your goals, either your macro goals or your nourishment goals, your food goals. This is something that is not a diet per se, because diets are so tricky and such a slippery slope into disordered eating. This is something you can use forever. So what I like to do is think about having a client set up their plate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And when you are creating your plate, you want to think about half of that plate being some sort of color. So some sort of produce, vegetables, or a fruit. And then the other fourth should be protein, and then the other fourth should be carbs. I hope that makes sense. Like just a circle. Yeah. Yes, cut in half. But obviously that's going to switch a little bit. Again, if you're an endurance runner and you need more carbs, then that's going to be a little bit balanced. If you are someone who is breastfeeding, you're probably going to need that half a plate, that produce plate, to be shrunk a little bit so that you're getting a little bit more calories with the carbs and the protein. But I think that that's just a really good way to still eat what your family is eating, because a lot of meal plans out there are not kid friendly. So it's always like, oh my gosh, this is a really good way to think like, okay, how can I get enough protein in on my plate while still eating what my family is eating? I don't have to make a separate meal. I can still hit my goals, whatever those are. And then just, remember that it's a lifestyle. It's nice because you can do that forever. You don't necessarily have to think about it so hard. You can even do that at, like a restaurant if you're out and you're, eating at a family picnic or anything like that. It's like, how can I set up my plate to support me, to feel good? Because when you are eating in that ratio, you're going to have better energy. Your body isn't going to be slogged down by trying to digest all of that food at once, because you had your produce, you had some protein, and you had some carbs to give you energy.
Yep. And how would you say the healthy fat fits into that?
Yes, great question. So I like to just think about fats like you almost always have a fat on a vegetable, right? You actually have to have some sort of fat in order to digest and absorb and actually utilize some of those nutrients, fat-soluble micronutrients that are in vegetables. So vitamin A, D, E, and K all need some fat. So I don't know about you, but broccoli without butter or olive oil, not super tasty. And you almost always have some sort of dressing on a salad. So that's kind of where that distributes. And then even if you think about cooking, right, with using, like, let's say you're making chicken on the stove, or maybe you put a little bit of butter on your brown rice, that kind of a thing. It kind of just distributes throughout the whole plate.
Okay, great. And would you say, so overall, because I know you've talked about endurance athletes, I mean, all the way through lifetime. And that's why I love the plate idea too, because like you said, it really can serve us and it might adjust slightly for different needs.
Yes.
But would you say overall, like for women, as we enter our 40s, as we enter our 50s and into our 60s, do our nutritional needs change? Are there things that we need to keep in mind to adjust?
That's such a good question. And I feel like it's such a hot topic right now, which is great. Like, we have no research on this, and we've kind of been the neglected population, right? Yes, our needs definitely change as we enter perimenopause and menopause, because estrogen is one of the main regulators of metabolism in the female body. And that decline in estrogen during perimenopause, and then more significantly in menopause, can cause the body to become significantly less effective at burning energy. When estrogen and also testosterone is in play there too. When those decline, we see a massive drop in muscle loss. We lose about 5 to 10% of our muscle, of our lean muscle, every 10 years. And unfortunately, this can lead to slower metabolism, decreased bone strength, weight gain, a redistribution of fat. So most women will see more fat in their middle section, which maybe they hadn't had before. Insulin resistance, which can lead to diabetes and heart issues. And then also a big decline in strength. So our basal metabolic rate goes down, which is how many calories we require per day to just sustain our body. And then that fat accumulation increases. So that changes our body composition. We might feel like a completely different person than we did 10 years before, even though we are eating the same, moving the same, doing the same things. So things have to kind of adjust with that. For people who are in that menopause area, sometimes perimenopause too, if it hits you pretty hard, I would say that if you can try to maintain your weight and focus on gaining muscle and or maintaining that muscle, instead of constantly being in weight loss mode. We as women tend to be like, oh, I just need to lose that 5 to 10 pounds. I just need to get that off and then I'll feel great. Switching that mindset is just a key in order to think like, I need to preserve my muscle so that I can be able to be mobile at 90, so that I still have some muscle. I don't have to rely on somebody else. I can get up and down out of this chair. I can go for a walk. It's just better than that yo-yo dieting mentality, and it helps keep our muscles intact. I think that's so important. And with that, the key really is protein. There is a reason why protein is so hot right now, because that protein is what's going to preserve that muscle and make sure that it's still being built instead of constantly being taken down with that decrease in estrogen.
Okay. So then tell us, how much protein do we actually need a day?
Okay, so I would say for women who are over 40, I would aim for at least 80 to 100 grams of protein per day. I think it's super important to, if you are somewhere in that like 30 to 50 age range plus, you can also do this calculation of zero point 0.7 to 1.0 grams per pound per day. Sometimes that 1 gram per pound is a lot. Like that can be a stretch. That's maybe if you are someone who strength trains regularly, like 3 to 5 times a week. You're really focusing on putting on muscle. And that can be hard to get to. Like I've tried to get to that recently in the last couple weeks, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much
Yeah.
protein.
It feels like a full-time job
It does.
sometimes.
It totally does. And the thing with that too is I don't want to be relying on protein bars and protein
Yeah.
shakes. Like you really want to get those from whole food sources. So that's why I always like to give that range. I know that can be frustrating for some people. It's like, well, which one do I pick? How do I do that? So that's why it's good to have that buffer, that range to be like, okay, if I'm somewhere in there, I'm hitting my goals, I'm doing okay with that. So that's what I really like to have in that range. The key though is to have that protein throughout the day. It's not all stacked at dinner. It's not all from protein shakes and protein bars. You know, you're trying to have somewhere between 20 to 35, 40 grams of protein at each meal, and then somewhere between 10 to 20 grams at snacks. I feel like that's kind of the key here, because otherwise it's gonna be dinner and you're gonna be like, wow, I haven't had like any protein today at all. Well, let me just shove it all on my plate, and that's not gonna feel great either on your digestive system.
Yep. And because this is just a personal question, I know I've asked you this before,
Yeah.
but for those of us with younger kids, because I know you have younger kids, my kids are 12 and 7. My daughter is a vegetarian, but she's very, very active, always in sports. I'm always thinking about how do I get more protein into my kiddos and how much do they need? Do you have thoughts on how much kids need compared to adults?
Yes, we as adults definitely need more. Kids are much better at being intuitive eaters and how much they need, but sometimes they do need a little help. Like it's always like, hey, let's, like my son, for instance, just had chips for dinner last night instead of eating his pita that had chicken in it and cheese. It's like, okay, bud, you're going to be hungry in an hour. I'm going to save this for you for later, but you probably won't eat it anyway. Kids are much better at knowing their needs, but sometimes they do need a little bit of help. So I would say if you can always offer protein, that's always helpful. I wouldn't push it and be like, oh, you need to be having, your palm size every single time. That can set up some disordered eating patterns, but it's always like, make sure it's available, make sure you serve it. For instance, my 7-year-old will come home from school and he is starving from the day and he's like, could eat the world. And I'm always like, buddy, you got to pick something that has protein or a healthy fat in it. And obviously it's a little bit helpful because I'm a dietitian, so he knows that a little bit better, but he could eat like 4 mini bagels and be so happy. And it's like, hey bud, you're going to be hungry in an hour again, and then it's almost time for dinner, so that's going to be a tight squeeze there. Let's pick a beef jerky. Can you have a piece of cheese? Would you like half of a hard-boiled egg with that? So I try to combine the two so that it's a little bit more palatable. But yes, you definitely want to just be offering that on there. It's up to them to determine how much they're eating. That's the division of responsibility with kids, but it's good that they get into that pattern so that when they're adults, they're not like, I just want to have a plate of pasta every night for dinner, and they find themselves to not feeling that great and they don't have healthy patterns and a healthy relationship with food. So offering it sets them up to include that in adulthood.
Okay. And because that pattern I think is so important because probably so many of us, me included, and like you've mentioned, I mean, I didn't grow up with great examples necessarily. And some really good examples that I took. Like we always had home cooked meals. We always had a family dinner. So important. And then also, yes, I had a mom who was always trying to diet and always talking about weight. And I mean, just growing up in the 80s, that was just what it was. And
Yes.
so for those of us who find ourselves now in our 40s, I mean, just later in life thinking, oh my gosh, I think I still have some of that. Do you have some tips, either embodiment tips or just even, something we can do every day, a thought process, even a mantra to help us remember the value of food, that food as nourishment as opposed to food being the enemy?
Yeah, I think going back to checking in with your body and going to those hunger cues is always so important. It's really hard to get out of that mentality of, "Oh, I only need 1,200 calories and that's it." Like I actually have a friend, and I don't think she would mind me using her as an example, but she was eating only 1,200 calories for the longest time, and then she actually started working with a different dietitian. I try not to work with friends because that can be tricky. And they bumped her up to, I think it was like 400 extra calories, which I had been trying to tell her, like, hey, I think you need to eat. Cause she was trying to lose a little bit of weight, which is totally fine. That's everybody's prerogative. I totally understand that. And oh my gosh, she's lost like 15 pounds just from eating more. I think that as women, we are always told to be less, eat less, take up less space. And that is not necessarily what's going to help you nourish your body, feel better, have more energy, sleep better. I almost always tell my clients to eat more than what they're eating because they're not eating enough, or they're not eating enough to support their workouts or their physical activity, or even just their day to day. And so I think if you can try to go throughout the day and just kind of check in with yourself and be like, I'm really, really hungry. It's 4 o'clock. I'm so hungry and I can't even remember what I had for lunch. It must not have been that good. I didn't really check in and just kind of ate it quickly. Try to check in with yourself and be like, okay, I haven't eaten in the last 3 to 4 hours. I've only had 8 ounces of water today. How
Yeah.
can I nourish my body a little bit better? How can I take care of myself? And I know that's very popular with self-care and all of that stuff, but just checking in, being like, oh my gosh, I feel kind of shaky. My stomach hurts a little bit. I really need to eat something. Or conversely, it's dinner. I just had that huge meal because I hadn't eaten throughout the day and I just need to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and I can't get anything else done for the rest of the day. I'm just going to go to bed with a very full stomach. So if you can just make sure that you are considering, like, I can take up space, I can nourish my body, I can eat more than what I've been told to my whole life, by checking in with myself and making sure that I'm eating regularly, I'm eating quality foods, and I'm making a balanced plate, I feel like that's a really good start in order to start to heal your relationship with food.
Yeah. And I love that. And I will say for anyone listening, I feel so I've been very conscious about that over the past year, like adding protein as I've wanted to increase my lifts and really focus on weight. And with my muscle soreness and just my entire history, it is not easy for me to make myself eat because sometimes my stomach feels better if I don't. Like, to be honest, there are times I just truly, if I don't eat. That being said, I mean, it is clear to me how much better I have felt during workouts, after workouts. My muscle soreness is less, my back pain is less. It is all better by actually eating more.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily, oh, I've timed all my food right. I'm not counting macros, but just making sure I am actually eating throughout the day, like consciously eating. It is truly amazing how much better I have felt overall from doing that.
Oh yeah. So I do a workout and called the Moves app on occasion, and they have like a challenge going right now for Tighter Together, and it's like very strength based and all of that, and so they send you calories too, and they said I needed 1,700 calories. I was like, oh, there's no way. I just know I'll be starving. Like there, I could never do that. That's just because I'm you have to consider I'm very active. I like literally chase my children around all day long, and I go to the gym for an hour, and it's like you have to know yourself better than maybe that macro counting tool, MyFitnessPal, all of that. It's like, well, that's not going to work for me. I'm just going to have to eat a little bit more than that, and that's just going to have to be okay. And maybe it takes you longer to reach your goals, or maybe you have to just be flexible in other ways, but yeah, you really have to just know yourself and know, like, okay, how am I feeling right now?
Yeah. And it's so funny you bring that up because I was going to bring up this same thing because I like to check out other apps also.
Yeah.
So I was in the same one and put in my information for macros. So everyone listening, it was just an automatic form. Like literally you put in your height, your weight, your age, and I think your activity level. That's it. And they spit back out macros needed. And mine said 1,500 calories a day.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like,
No.
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 Nope, that's not going to work. But the thing is, I know how many women would take that number and run with it because we do feel ashamed. We just assume that that's the answer. We feel ashamed if we have more. Like, I know how hard I kind of laugh about it now, but I absolutely know how hard it is to break out of that preconceived notion or that societal idea about what we should be eating or how much we should be eating. And that truly is why I've stayed away from some of that in Unlimited and in my app simply because of that. And I love, so for you guys and members listening, Marita is coming into Unlimited and we're going to start doing more nutritional content. But I love that idea that it really does need to be more personalized. And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to work one-on-one with someone. That's not always accessible, but just knowing that it is a journey with you and your body, and it has to start with, yes, education, but also, yeah, how do you feel? Like, how do you feel? Are you eating, truly looking at what you're eating, when you're eating? Because when I really was looking at what I was eating, like I was happy grabbing a string cheese, a couple pieces of turkey, and like you said, an apple, that would be my lunch because again, I was like, okay, my stomach's okay with that. But that was not supporting the trail runs I wanted to do. I
No.
mean, it just truly wasn't.
Right. Yeah, that's very low for lunch. Yeah, that would be like a snack.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now you know that. Now you know your body better and you're like, "Oh my gosh, no, that's not enough food for me. I need to beef this up a little bit."
Right, exactly. And then also realizing, okay, that's okay if that is all I want right now, but then I need to eat again in an hour. So, I
Yes.
mean, I think
Yes.
it really is so individual.
And very nuanced, and it's going to change
Yeah.
every day depending on what you have going on, your stress, your sleep, your physical activity. It just depends on how you feel, and that's okay. We can't be robots and eat the same thing every day at the same exact time and expect to feel great.
Yeah. Can you talk for a few? We've talked about protein and all the macros. I would love to hear you talk about fiber too, because I
Yeah.
know that's something I've tried to focus on more for myself. What are general fiber recommendations?
Yes. So women need somewhere between 20 to 25 grams a day, and men somewhere between 34 to 38 grams per day. And that can be really tricky to get to. A lot of people think, oh, there's fiber in everything, but that's actually not the case. There is a lot of fiber in fruit and vegetables. So raspberries tend to have the most. Avocado is very high. Things like Brussels sprouts and broccoli have fiber, but actually it's whole grains, carbohydrates, where the most of our fiber is at. So it's whole wheat bread, brown rice, whole wheat pitas, things like that. Those tortillas, those have the most fiber. So, and that is, of course, the one thing that we're taught to have less of, get rid of, like less carbs, less on our plate, all of those things. But fiber is so important for our digestive system, for our gut health, for our immune system, for our heart health. It is not over exaggerated the benefits of fiber. So I would highly recommend trying to include more whole grains in your diet. I really love those. I hate this word, the carb control, but they have. Oh my gosh, those tortillas have 17 grams of fiber for the small ones. I love them. I try to have one like once a day because I'm almost there. That's like almost the
Yeah.
whole day's thing. I'm like, woo, I got that out of the way. That's awesome. I feel high five to myself. So I would just start to look at some labels and find some things that you really like. Like most people, I love Dave's Killer Bread because they have a ton of fiber. Sometimes the Ezekiel ones, like if you're gluten-free, they have really good fiber amounts too in the freezer aisle. Even like waffles, that's like a protein waffle usually has at least 3 grams of fiber in there. So those little things add up. I know you might be thinking like, ooh, 3 grams, that's not that much, but over the course of the day, that will add up. And then making sure that you're getting half your plate of produce, you should be able to hit your fiber targets. I don't love fiber supplements. Like psyllium can be really hard on your digestive tract if you're not used to taking that. If you're someone who has really high cholesterol or triglycerides, or you're really trying to focus on your heart health, that might be something to explore if you're really struggling with getting enough fiber. But you have to start very slowly and drink a ton of water. And conversely, like those fiber gummies are really not my favorite. It's only if you are really, really struggling with hitting that goal of, somewhere in that 20 to 40 range. So they're not my favorite. They're okay, maybe once, but the quality ones really only have like 3 to 5 grams anyway. So it's kind of like, let's just have some raspberries instead. Like we don't need to necessarily spend our money on that.
Okay. And to round it out, because I know we need to start to wrap up, and I have so many questions I could ask. But since we're talking about fiber and you kind of mentioned supplements, do you have just either general thoughts? Because again, I mean, that's $1 billion industry talking
Ugh.
to us women every single day about all the supplements we need to be taking.
Yes.
Do you just have a general thought around supplements? And then are there any really specific ones that you do say, yes, that's probably what you need? No, you really don't need this.
So I will say if you are pregnant or breastfeeding or in that 2-year window of having children, definitely take a multivitamin, a quality multivitamin, because you have really depleted all those vitamins and minerals from your body that's leached from your bones and your body to that baby. So highly recommend taking that. I would say if you can take a probiotic, because as a culture whole, pretty much everywhere, we are really low on probiotics just with the way that our food system works. So I would say for everybody, a quality probiotic first thing in the morning on an empty stomach is what I always recommend. And then for women, especially as we age, we got to take care of our bones. So if you can take a quality vitamin D, especially if you live in a northern state, I always recommend vitamin D3 plus K2. I like the Thorn drops. Those are good. So one less pill to take, right? You just have to take some drops. But that's pretty much it. I would say if you're someone who's just really struggling to get good quality food in your diet, then yes, taking a quality multivitamin is a good idea. But I wouldn't even say you have to take it every day. I would say every other day is good. It's also really important to not take everything at once, because then they can cancel each other out. Things don't get digested properly. That's important. And if you find that you're someone who has really heavy periods or you struggle with your cycles, then I would definitely get an iron test to see what that looks like if you're anemic, and taking a quality iron supplement as well.
Okay. That is so helpful because, yes, I even feel like I should be taking 25 different things a day.
I
But
know.
then it just adds to my stress levels
It
around
does.
eating. And I really think that's a place I've tried to land is food should also nourish my nervous system. So how can I do that? Like how can I enjoy it? Eat what I need to for fuel. Yes, sometimes I just need to get it down. But also, yeah, what does my nervous system feel like while I am consuming the food I need?
Yes, exactly. Checking in. Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, tell everybody where can they find you because I know they're going to want more information after this.
Yes. Okay. So my website is maritaradloff.com. Very creative, I know. And then I am also on Instagram, not as often as I would like these days, but I'm Marita. I changed that. I'm Marita Rad RDN on Instagram and other socials. And then if you are looking for endurance help with that, if that's something that you're into, I have a course with another dietitian. It's called the Nail Your Nutrition course. And that's where you can find me.
Yep. And I will have the links to all of that below because, yes, Marita specializes too in fueling athletes. So if you are in that realm, she is a great resource for you. And I know someday we'll have to talk more about books because you love books as much as I do because we're always
Yes. Oh my
sharing
gosh.
books.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for being here, Marita. Thank you for all of this information. And guys, just remember food is your friend and you can find a way to help it support your body in all the ways you need.
Exactly. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks so much for listening today. I would love it if you could take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It means a lot to us and it helps our content get out to more women who need it. You can find more of my resources at my website, jessicavalant.com, or find me on YouTube at Jessica Valant and Instagram at Jessica S. Valant.